Ashley. I'm the founder and managing director of Monty Compost Co., which is a sustainability startup that I founded at the beginning of 2019, and I've been working on ever since. Actually, our company helps people who don't know much about composting. So basically, it's a monitoring system. So it consists of a device that sits in your compost and then collects all the data on it decomposing, transmits that to your phone, and we analyze that data to generate instructions on how to manage your compost. So basically saying it needs these materials, it needs this amount of water, you need to turn it over, here are some recommendations on how to change the setup. Because I think a lot of people have this perception with composting that you just throw all the organic waste into a bin and it breaks down perfectly. But there's a lot more actual science to it, to making it break down, effectively, efficiently, cleanly, in such a way, fast, in such a way that you have a good, high quality end product. And that's basically what our instructions, help people to do. There's the software and the hardware component. So literally just downloading the app and purchasing the device. I think probably the better way to think of it is just that I tried literally everything else. I studied at St. Peter's, I studied so many different things. I did drama and art and film and biology. And so I just tried the whole range of things. When I graduated at university, I studied film and psychology and business and international relations, and business and IT actually was my final degree. So I think it was more so that I just tried. It felt like it must have been every single career path, and none of them fit, and I couldn't I couldn't feel very motivated about any of them. And the only thing that I found had been really consistent through it all was that I've always been really passionate about the environment. So in my final year of uni, I found out about these entrepreneurship courses at UQ. I just randomly took one and I just fell in love. And yeah, unlike all of those other kind of things that I've explored and experiences and things I've learned, it was the only thing that I felt like I could do for the rest of my life. So I think one of the quotes that I really liked, that people have said, is that when you do a startup, you're both the CEO and the janitor, which basically means you're always just doing something different every single day. We've got a fairly small team, but I'm still kind of just filling into every different area. Typically, I'll probably be splitting my time between working on product development, but that could be the hardware or the electronics or the software. As well as kind of the more market engagement side and kind of directing our employees. And then I've just got all of this extra stuff coming through my head. And so no single day is the same. I'm kind of at varying degrees of on top of every single area of the company. A lot of the work is really difficult and really stressful, but the overarching, kind of mission that everything I work on in this company is for making the world a more sustainable place. That's really what keeps me going and what I'm so grateful for. With all these other courses I did and career experiences I had, I never had this kind of passion and motivation. So that's what I would say would be the best part about it, despite all the other challenges I suppose that come with doing a startup. It's funny because I knew nothing about compost until just over 2 years ago. Nothing. Never did it when I was a kid. Never I barely had even heard about it. I'd always been, like I said, passionate about the environment though. I'd always been really big into sustainability and environmentalism. So it's a bit of a cliche, but I literally just read a book that was talking about various different environmental problems, and it focused on both organic waste and artificial fertilizers, two really massive problems that no one really talks about. In environmentalism, you always talk about solar panels and electric cars, But this book highlighted those two really random unknown issues, and I just got obsessed with them, and how such a simple solution to it is compost. And I suppose I just kind of went down the compost rabbit hole and realized how much potential there is in the area. So I graduated with business management and IT. And so I feel in terms of like actual practical technical skills, I have quite a broad, if maybe not very deep, understanding of a lot of the different areas that you need for a startup. So whether it is on the business or the technical side. So while it has been challenging to have to learn all the different stuff, like whether it's manufacturing or marketing, it's still like I've still had a bit of an intro, like I've still had a bit of that foundational skills for them. I genuinely think probably the most challenging thing is the mental challenges that come with it. You know, even when things are going right, like even when all the product's going perfectly and marketing's great and HR's easy, like there are still so many, you know, mental challenges in running a company. You know, I'm kind of chronically worried that like I feel like I've got a bit of a duty to the people who've been supporting us to like it sounds crazy, but like to make them proud of what we've done together, and kind of constantly feeling this responsibility, I suppose is a better word, for them and for making this successful. And you know, there's like that chronic stress of, you know, where's our cash flow going to be in 6 months, and are we going to be able to pay these bills, and how are we going to make sure that our product ships to the customer in time. So there are these chronic, constant mental stresses that come with the job, even if everything is going right. So I think that would probably be the biggest challenge, and I probably didn't, you know, expect that as much as I should have. Everyone talks about the challenges of the more technical challenges. They don't really talk about the mental challenges. But just figuring out ways to cope with that has been what I've been trying to do, and yeah, getting there. So there's a lot going on in commercial composting, so like large scale composting where they have these big compost piles in industrial composting where they're like literally 100 meters long and like multiple stories high. They're just these giant piles of waste. And there are a lot of problems with doing it like that. Basically just that you aren't able to manage at that scale. And as well as managing like the contamination of those piles, if you want to use the end product of compost like on soil, like there is often a lot of waste contamination, whether it's plastics, whether it's heavy metals. And because there are so many financial incentives for people to start recycling through composting, they're just trying to like cut costs. So there are actually a lot of problems with industrial composting that are just being made worse as people are more interested in doing food organics recycling. Really, the future of it is not going to be industrial composting. It's going to be small scale composting. And that's kind of where, and I'm not just saying that because that's what our technology does. It's genuinely that it's much easier to manage, and it's not as prone to all these other problems as it is on a large scale. So I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge, is trying to transition from these giant compost operations to smaller, decentralized ones. Everyone produces organic waste, everyone can compost. More so, but I suppose for our particular purposes though, is that while everyone can compost, not everyone should have to do the management themselves. You know, we want to make composting available to everyone, whether they're doing the composting themselves in their own backyard, or whether a community garden, or even a school, or even, you know, a commercial property does it for them. We just want to make those facilities available for everyone. So maybe you live in an apartment and you can't compost yourself. There should be a composting operation down the road or in your basement that you can use. And so that's kind of what we see as the future. And that's why we're trying to make composting easy for everyone, so that we can set up as many facilities as possible that everyone can tap into. So we're just in Australia right now. Actually, that's something that's quite funny. So we're doing a product launch right now with the first 100 units of the device. but we're keeping it kind of local so we can engage really closely with these customers. But we're going to be putting we're going to be shipping one unit to the UK and then one to the US, just to try those different environments, but to people that we know, so they're not just random customers. So we kind of joke that, oh, you know, we're going to be a like 3-continent company already. But no, for the time being, we are just focusing on Australia. Our next kind of steps are, we're going to be doing a crowdfunding campaign though after this 100 units, and for that particular campaign we'll be making it available in multiple different regions overseas. It'll have pre-order purchase of the product, and then there'll also be donations available, and there'll also be like some kind of like gift incentives there too. In compost in particular, people are really trying to figure out, how can we get all of our organic waste being recycled? Because with things like plastic recycling and e-waste recycling, it is a little bit easier in terms of setting up that recycling infrastructure, because it's like, you know, we all have, you know, that cupboard or that box of old iPhones in our house that are just collecting dust. You know, you could hand that off to some recycling program and no problems a year from now, 2 years from now. But with organic waste, you need to actually have it being recycled like within a week from the time it's produced, and you have this really efficient system. So I think there are a lot of really great companies that are trying to do like local collection of organic waste to different restaurants and cafes, and there are also a lot of people who are creating like community gardens and things like that. But they're really the biggest waves that are happening in composting. What we love is being like this super high-tech company, bringing the energy of like, you know, software and hardware and startups to what's currently a pretty traditional industry. So yeah, I suppose that's kind of the state of things right now, and it's exciting to really be a part of it. People and soft skills are so crucial for a startup. Like, I think that a lot of people go in and they say, okay, I need to have an engineering degree and I need to do this and I need to know this and this and this. But it's like, if you're able to work with people and get people to want to work with you, that is one of the most important aspects. Because like, you know, if you want to picture yourself like a few years from now as an entrepreneur, like, okay, I want the company to be this. Honestly, all you're going to be doing is delegating. Like, you're not going to be able to be using those skills. Like, one of the most important things are soft skills and being able to manage and work with people, I would say so. And especially in the beginning, when you want to get as many people supporting you for ideally as cheap as possible. Like, it's an unfortunate reality of a startup, but you can't really afford to be like paying for the experts. So sometimes you just need to be able to get the team going at that really low rate. I think with people skills, it's just talking to people. Like, I think that, you know, that like there's so much, you know, tips and tricks on how to be a people person, but I think it's just going out there and being a genuine person and trying to engage as much as possible and practicing those skills. This is such cliche advice, but it's true. All you can really do is come out of your shell. But I think what does really help, particularly in like where you're actually doing a venture, is being passionate about what you're doing. Because I've had so many people say to me, they're like, I don't really care about compost at all, but I was really encouraged by your passion for it. So I think it's really actually quite easy to connect with people and develop those soft skills when you have that passion that you can talk about and share with them. I tried so many different things before I found what I wanted to do. And so I think that it is, and like I was looking back and I'm like, wow, I started at St. Peter's in 2009 and I didn't start Monty in 2019. So like pretty much almost a decade of like learning and exploring different things and trying different, you know, like research areas and schooling and like work experiences before I've really found what I wanted to do. And I like, this is what I want to do with my life. I feel that strongly about it. And I think that it was really hard for a long time because I felt like I was constantly trying these different things and none of it seemed to be working. But I think that it is so worthwhile. And if something doesn't feel like it's what you could, like, you want to spend time developing on it, whether it's a career or whether it's a venture, you shouldn't be afraid to kind of, to some industry jargon, pivot and, you know, cut your losses and say, I'm going to try something completely different, and like not have that fear that, you know, you're giving up on something, because it's not giving up, it's going somewhere new. So yeah, I would say that keep exploring.